Firms Week. This is the first webinar for the sessions this week, and we're really excited to have you here with us, kicking off 8 webinars that we have planned and scheduled all the way through Friday. I'm Deanna Laird, and I'm National Director of the University Services here at Accounting Fly, and I'll be your host this morning in this session. And like I said, we're kicking off this week with a lot of really great webinars on various accounting topics. So, check out the other things that we have going on at our meetthefirmsweek.com site, and make sure you register for other sessions as well. If you sign up, even if it's not convenient with your schedule, you'll get a recording of all the topics that we have and the materials that you sign up for. So we are here today to talk about career and taxation, as you know. And to start this off, what I'd like to do is we just want to get an idea of the audience, of who you are with us, so that we can understand a bit about your background. So I've launched a poll that we'd love for you to just let us know your experience level so that we can understand you as a group. All right? And submit that when you have an opportunity. And while you're doing that, I just want to give you a background about Accounting Fly. And we're all about supporting and really furthering careers in accounting. And like I said, we're just so glad that you've decided to join us this morning and learn about taxation. And we want to let you know, if you haven't already looked at our job board, take an opportunity to take a look there, because we have a lot of job opportunities for entry-level and internship positions. We work with hundreds of firms across the country, and we'd like to be with you, not only helping you learn about different and important accounting career topics, but also helping you find a job. So in the current accounting field, you'll see that we are focused in accounting. That's our area of concentration. It's our niche, and so you can be assured that when you're working with us, we're going to have that interest, and hopefully it helps you to be focused as well in the jobs that you're looking for and the material that you're learning about. If you didn't complete a profile, you should. Not only will it help you in your job search, because we will be sending off all profiles and resumes of those completed for this event to every firm in your state. Okay, so you'll also be included in our monthly $500 scholarship drawing. So make sure you complete a profile on Accounting Fly if you haven't already done so, for just those 2 benefits alone. And then, of course, we really put a lot of focus on webinars like this one, and the path to a successful career in accounting. And we're just really excited to have this session for you today. So what I'm going to do now is just share the poll that you just completed. So it's very interesting. Here we have a nice mix of different various levels of experience. So really glad to see the variety here. And I think this topic is going to be applicable to all of you. And Annette, I hope that that's interesting and helpful for you.
Yes. Very good. Thank you.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Okay, so I've referenced Annette here, and what I would like to do now is introduce our esteemed speaker. And I tell you, when I read through her bio, well, one, it took a little while. There was a lot in the background of Annette, and it's extremely impressive. So Professor Annette Nellen teaches at San Jose State University Graduate Tax Program, and she's also the director of the tax program at San Jose State. She teaches a variety of courses, including tax research and property transactions, state taxation, ethics, high technology, tax matters, and a few others, even on top of those. But prior to joining San Jose State University, which she did in 1990, she was with Ernst & Young and with the IRS. And she graduated from California State University Northridge with a BS in accounting. She got her MBA at Pepperdine, and she got her JD at Loyola Law School. So quite an accomplished pedigree there. Professor Nellen serves on the AICPA Tax Executive Committee and the AICPA Tax Reform Task Force. She's also the past chair of the AICPA Individual Taxation Technical Resource Panel. And she's a monthly contributor to their Tax Insider e-newsletter and a lead author in the Tax Policy Concept Statement #1. So, like I said, I was just, quite impressed when I read through this, and I think we're in excellent hands with her background and experience that she's going to bring to us this morning. On top of that, got to let you know about an award that she received in November 2013. She received the Arthur J. Dixon Memorial Award from the AICPA. This is the highest honor bestowed by the accounting profession in the area of taxation. So with that, I'm sure we are in for quite a session, and we're in for a wonderful knowledge that she's going to be able to impart on us. As we kick off with Nellen, I'm going to do one more poll, and this is in regards to your interest level in the area of taxation and in a career in taxation. So if you can just complete this poll to let us know kind of where you stand. If maybe you're here just to learn a bit about taxation, or maybe you know that this is the area you want to go in, and are here to learn some more of the details. Okay? It looks like the results are largely in, so I'm going to go ahead and close the poll. And Annette, I will show this to you so that you can take that into mind as you're starting to prepare your thoughts.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Terrific. So with that, I'm going to hand this over to Professor Nellen, and I would like to let everybody know before I do that, just a couple of housekeeping items. Throughout the session, we encourage you to ask questions, because at the end of the session, we will have a Q&A opportunity for you. And the way for you to ask questions is in the webinar tool. If you look on the right-hand side of your screen, you should see a menu bar. If you don't, look for an orange button at the top with an arrow, and you may need to expand the control panel. When you have the control panel expanded, you should see a section that's called Questions. And to expand that, you'll just click on the plus sign. In the Questions panel, you have a blank box where you can type in questions. And so just what we'd like you to do to test this out right now is type in the school that you're from, either that you attend, or if you've already graduated, you can note that I've already graduated, but you can type in the school that you received your degree at. And this way, we want to make sure that you understand the use of this question box, and also encourage you again to post questions throughout the session. I will monitor those questions, and then we'll post those to Annette at the end. Okay, terrific. All right, so Annette, I am going to be quiet, and I'm going to hand it over to you.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Deanna, and welcome everybody. I'm glad to be part of this Meet the Firm's Career Path Week that Accounting Fly has. I'm very impressed with the programs they've got this week, and hope you'll be able to take advantage of several of these this week, all geared to helping you find a career or get along further in the current career you might be in. So I want to focus on how to be successful in a career in taxation, and what we're going to look at is what we mean by careers in taxation, because that might be new to some of you. Then what makes for an effective tax professional? People might think, oh, he doesn't even know a lot about tax law, but it's really a lot more than that. And then there's many of these skills and knowledge you can be gaining now, either while you're in your undergrad program or in a graduate program, or perhaps even when you're in your first few years on the job. What more can you do to make sure you are properly advancing your career? And then, as Deanna mentioned, we'll have some time for Q&As at the end. Well, what do we mean by possible careers in tax? I think a lot of times we might just think about, well, tax people, they fill out tax forms. Well, we call that tax compliance. But there's really a lot more that tax professionals do. Now, before we leave that, though, compliance is more than just filling out your own Form 1040. Tax practitioners are going to see a variety of tax forms. For businesses, they're going to have corporate, partnership, S-corp forms. They've got state tax forms. Even local jurisdictions may have tax obligations. And, of course, today in a global business environment, even for both business and individuals who have investments perhaps outside the U.S., compliance can actually get quite complicated just with the multitude of types of transactions, the cross-border transactions. So compliance actually can be a rather big deal, well beyond filling out what, if wanting to exist, what a simple 1040 might look like. Practitioners also spend a lot of time on planning and advising, and that is to, for example, for a business, obviously they want to always lower all of their costs, and one of their costs, in fact, the big cost they have is their income tax, other taxes they might be paying, excise taxes, sales tax on items purchased, property taxes. So how can they best manage that? And then in that planning and advising, it's also how do you manage the whole tax function, not just to overall lower your taxes, to make sure, though, that you're compliant. Obviously, missing any kind of a deadline or an opportunity is an added cost. And then one additional compliance area that really taken a fair amount of time among many practitioners and businesses and individuals is dealing actually with many new provisions from the Affordable Care Act, including there's a penalty in there for both individuals and businesses that they don't do certain things such as having appropriate health coverage or offering certain health coverage. That's something that they would look to their tax advisor to help them with. The last item I have noted here in controversy, that's dealing with, should you get audited by the IRS or your state tax agency, tax advisors certainly help their clients with those topics as well. Where do tax professionals work? We probably most commonly think of, oh, they work for a CPA firm, right? We hear a lot about CPA firms when you're an accounting major, and that is where a lot of tax professionals work. In fact, it's probably where a good majority of them do work. I do note here also non-CPA firms, because if you're solely interested in doing tax work, particularly if it's for dealing with individuals, you might, and I don't want to do any certified audits. Maybe you don't want to become a CPA. An enrolled agent might be fine with that. They would tend to deal with small business individuals, though I think typically most accounting majors are focused on, yes, I do want to become a CPA, work for a CPA firm, and there's certainly many tax professionals working there. Another opportunity, and this might come right out of school, but more likely after you've actually had a few years working in a CPA firm, is to go into a corporate tax department. And depending on the size of the company, that can be from one individual up to well over 100 individuals in a tax department. And again, dealing with all types of compliance from income tax, sales tax, property tax, and domestic, international, all of that. And then we should not forget that some tax professionals do work for the IRS or the equivalent state tax agency or even a local tax agency. So there are many places where tax professionals can work. And what are the titles they have there? In a CPA firm, it's everything from starting off as a staff person, working your way up to being a partner or a principal in that firm. And as you go along, obviously more responsibility for managing engagements, managing people, managing compliance activities and planning. In industry, it could go everywhere from staff up to, in many companies, the head tax person is actually a vice president of the company, vice president of tax with significant responsibilities. Then at the IRS, typically the job for someone with an accounting major is going to be a revenue agent, and they work at what they call grade. You're grade 7. You can work up to higher levels, grade 13 and above is typically a management type level, but many, many opportunities for career advancement in the area of tax and accounting. What are the skills needed in these different areas? You can see for the most part it's fairly similar in that, for example, I note client relationships. Well, obviously, if you're going to work in a CPA firm, that's a key thing. But even working at the IRS, you obviously have to be able to interact with those that you are auditing in a positive way and interacting with their tax advisor, who often is representing that taxpayer during the course of an audit. Note how I have towards the bottom, strong interpersonal skills. That's key anywhere. You just can't be a tax professional and not be interacting with other people. And I stress that because I do sometimes find students thinking, oh, tax, that's for me. I'm going to sit at a desk all day all by myself and never have to talk to anybody, and I'm just fine with that. I don't think that job exists because I've never seen it, and that just isn't the way it is. and you should be thinking about, wow, tax is exciting because I am going to interact with a lot of individuals, everybody from the taxpayer to IRS, state tax agencies, my colleagues, all kinds of interactions that you'll have, all very exciting. And it does involve a fair amount of people, project, and time management skills. Obviously, tax is very driven by deadlines, and you don't want to miss those because that's when penalties can come up, and those can be very significant. So time management and project management are very key skills for a tax professional. All right, well, what is needed to be an effective tax professional? And I stress this again because I do find sometimes I teach graduate tax courses, and most of our students actually are working professionals, usually about 1 to 9 years experience. So we have a growing number of full-time students in the program, I think probably because California in recent years has adopted the requirement to have 150 units to become a CPA. So many undergrads find, well, gee, I'll just go right into a graduate program and get my 150 units, go launch my career from there. Well, is a tax professional different from other professions, especially in the accounting field? Certainly one big difference is that the tax law is extremely complicated. GAAP can be complicated, but the tax law, I think, surpasses just about everything in terms of complexity. And that might cause some people to think, no, I don't want to do that. Others are like, well, that's really interesting. That's going to be I'm always going to be intellectually engaged. And that's a good focus for going into tax. You're fine to be challenged. You want that intellectual engagement, something that's often changing and challenging your ability to figure out how complicated rules apply to often complicated transactions. So how does actually a tax professional vary from an accounting professional? And you can see obviously similarities in this little table I have here. And one thing certainly to stress is that the strong analytical skills, yeah, I think those are even stronger need in the tax area just because the law just gets more and more complicated. And of course we do transactions that are complicated. Another thing I want to stress about a tax professional versus someone who's an accounting professional not solely dealing with tax is that for tax there's a fair amount of time needed just to be keeping up to date. And not that the GAAP and accounting law rules don't ever change, but not nearly at the pace or at the depth that we will see for tax. So certainly a willingness to find that time to be keeping up to date. But for the most part, you know, all very similar between accounting and someone focused more on tax. Okay, well, I always like to tell my students, you know, what does that outstanding tax professional have? Well, they have to have a broad, deep knowledge of the tax law, and that's what helps you identify issues. Oh, that's something where it's either an opportunity or maybe it's a trap or something we need to deal with so that we are not going to be hit with any kind of a penalty or anything. Then you need really good tax research skills so you can find the answers to those issues you've been able to identify. And then to do all of that, you really need very good critical and integrative thinking skills. Integrative, that you've got to just not know the client's tax scenario. You've got to understand what their business motive is, what their accounting accounting aspects are, so you can bring all of that together. You also need to have very good communication skills because you've got to be able to get the information from a client or from others, if you work in an industry, others from your company you're going to need to be able to do the tax compliance and planning work, and you need to be able to communicate the results to your client. And writing is extremely important. I always tell my students, even just having a comma in the wrong spot might change the meaning of what you're telling them to perhaps disastrous results, you know, potential. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but that is. I mean, it's a really good communication skills, both verbal and in writing, very key to tax work. Strong interpersonal skills, you've got to be able to interact with your client, if you're an industry that's in your company, so you're getting the information that you need. So that you can, for example, work in industry. At times, you know, the CFO is going to say, can you explain this to me in just 2 minutes? You're thinking, my gosh, that's like a 2-hour topic. Well, do you have that ability to be able to explain it and get the highlights to what, you know, the CFO, the CEO might need? You've got to have these strong interpersonal skills and confidence in what you're able to do, both your interpersonal and communication skills. Leadership abilities, we'll get into that in a little more detail. So that you want the values that support strong ethical behavior. There's many rules of conduct that apply to any accounting professional, And in the tax area, you've got one additional layer of rules of conduct in the form of penalties that could apply to a client, could apply actually to the preparer. So things to be aware of, knowing, what you, how you need to operate and how you need to communicate things to your client. And then you need to have confidence, right? Because, if you don't want to be wishy-washy, you've got to show that, yes, I do have that strong, deep knowledge of the tax law. I really do understand how these rules apply. When I don't understand it, I have the skills to go and figure it out because I've got this strong, deep knowledge. And it's going to take a fair amount of self-motivation because you always got due dates upcoming, you've always got things to keep up to date, and then you're just dealing with this often complex area of the accounting area. Okay, so the ones where I had these asterisks, let's delve into a little more detail of what I was getting at here. What do I mean by broad, deep knowledge of the tax law and tax research skills? Well, it's one of the skills of reading and interpreting the law, right? It comes from a statute, the Internal Revenue Code, we're talking about the federal level, regulations from the IRS, rulings from the IRS and the courts. There's just a lot to be dealing with. You need to know how to find that, what it is, how to apply it, and when to apply it. You need to actually understand how the tax system is set up, whether it's an income tax, a sales tax, or some basic foundational things of how they work. You need to have an understanding of that so that you can be understanding, when you add more to it, oh, you've got this, cloud computing transaction. Well, that's new. How do I apply these laws to it? Understanding that foundation is going to be a big part of that. Ability to use and apply primary authority, right? We don't want to, we're not going to be able to advance our career by just reading, for example, IRS publications or books about the tax law. We need to be able to get into the primary authority, what's coming right from the government, the statute, the regs, the court cases. And then there are these very helpful tools out there to help a tax practitioner. You may have used some of them in your classes or on your work, such as REA Checkpoint, CCH, B&A. Those are very powerful tools. You need to know how to use them efficiently because, for example, in a CPA firm, usually you don't hear, oh, take all the time you need to get this project done. No, usually it's like, oh, you got a 2-hour budget, which they expect you're going to be efficient and knowing what to do, how to get it done. So that strong, deep knowledge of the tax law, the ability to do good research, all very important there. And actually, one way to actually gain a lot of that would be through, your undergrad tax courses, work experience, and often what we find in the tax field, just to be honest with you, if you talk to accountants or attorneys that are primarily doing tax work, you're often going to find that both those accountants and attorneys usually have a graduate degree in tax. For accounting students, it's an MST or an MBT, and then for a lawyer, it's usually an LLM in tax. I think it's just indicating that it's just the nature of the complexity we see today that to really do well in these fields and advance, typically a graduate degree is required at some point in your career. Well, also is stressing for a good tax practitioner, they really need to have very good interpersonal skills. And these are just the skills and abilities you need to be able to have effective relationships with many people, your coworkers, your friends and family, your superiors, the people that report to you, your clients, government folks that you might be working with on an audit. And just, just having that confidence that no matter what the setting, if you've got someone who's an upset client because they're getting audited, for example, you've got a concerned staff member because they're confused, can't figure something out, or they think they've made a mistake. Can you deal with them effectively? And that's just, practice plus having, you've had some of this knowledge and skills gained in some of your business classes you've had as an accounting major or finance major, and these are things, just people management type skills that are really going to be very useful. And those are other things you can do along the way that you will probably find in your employer might have you do additional, coursework and management skills, interpersonal, but very, very important to being a good tax professional because they're not going to work all by themselves. They're going to interact with a lot of people and need to be doing so effectively. More on this, how would you define these interpersonal skills? Well, certainly if it's interacting, it means also communicating well, which also means listening well. And sometimes we forget that that's a key part of communication. It's not just us doing the speaking or the writing, it's listening effectively to other people. Very important. You wouldn't want to, for example, be interviewing a client and completely miss that they're telling you something very important that's going to be relevant to their tax situation. It's presenting yourself well, in a professional manner. That's all. Your everything from appearance to your proper voice, good manners. Can't stress that enough. Treating others with respect, right? That's all part of interpersonal skills. I mean, if you're always, telling somebody how awful they did, oh, I'm reviewing your work, and all I tell you is all the bad things you did, never tell you anything good that you did. Obviously, that's not building good interpersonal skills, relationships with others. Being responsible and trustworthy, such that people know that you are going to interact in a professional way. You'll respond to email timely. You're paying attention when they're talking to you. You're meeting deadlines, meeting expectations. Being positive and appreciative, exercising self-control, and ability to be a team player. And a lot of it really comes down to something I'll mention more is, well, today we really define a lot of that as having high emotional intelligence. That might be something maybe a professor's mentioned to you in some classwork or you've read about, but we'll talk a little more about that as well, because it really comes down to, I think, being today defined as high emotional intelligence. We also said a good tax practitioner had to have good leadership skills. So what do we mean by that? Let's just focus primarily on personal leadership, because you might be saying, well, gee, I'm not going to be out managing, engagements from day one. I'm not going to be managing a company. But there's still always this personal leadership, which of course, you're exercising on a day-to-day basis. That's everything from taking responsibility for your actions. For example, you see this in the classroom. Whose fault is it if, you missed something on the test? Is it the professor's fault? Is it your fault? That could be both, but taking responsibility for your actions and everyday type of activity, taking responsibility for your own career advancement. If you're thinking, oh, someone will come along and help me on how to advance my career or find what I need to be doing or get ready for that very first interview. And there are many people certainly at university that can help, but it's still you taking responsibility, and that's really part of personal leadership and something you'll find is just a skill set that is going to help you throughout your career, as well as even just being a good citizen, right? There's many times in your community you need to get engaged, or your children's school, variety of things where personal leadership is just very, very important. Communicating with confidence and skill. People understand what you're explaining. You're getting at the key points. Just skill introducing yourself to others, not waiting for, oh, someone will introduce themselves to me. No, you can take the leadership and go and introduce yourself to somebody, at a Beta Alpha Psi meeting or at a community meeting, whatever it might be. Ability to establish positive relationships. Obviously, you probably heard this. For example, if you're in a CPA firm and want to move up to the level of partner, it's not just the skills and knowledge of the tax law. It's going to be the ability to develop relationships. Find, for example, new clients, build and maintain the current client base that you've got. Actively listening, can't downplay that enough. Very important, active listening. Identifying areas where you can continue to improve. We're all part of personal leadership, taking responsibility for yourself. That'll help in many ways. And then it's also really helping others to advance. Can you share some of that knowledge with others, after you graduate, coming back and, seeing where can I help maybe people find, the job? What did I wish I'd known back when I was an undergrad that someone maybe could have told me, can I help give back in those ways? So there's a variety of things there. Well, what I'll spend the remaining time on, so we're leaving time for questions, is I thought, well, can I just give you a few things just to think about? And it's not any kind of magic items. I've got 6 items here, things you might do to help you either enter or advance in the tax field. And I've had opportunity to give a fair amount of thought to this and seen it in practice in the graduate tax program that I teach in. Plus, I do interact a lot with professionals in my career, even as a tax professor, because I have sometimes thought that students were like, oh, I just need to get that piece of paper that says MST. That's going to open up the whole job world for me. It's going to help, but it's not going to be enough. You're obviously going to find that job. You're going to have to even get to the point where someone will even give you an interview, so you've got to know what to do and how to be there. Once you get that interview, they assume, since you're already, for example, in an MST program or have an MST degree or even have an undergraduate degree, that there's obviously a strong skill and knowledge base you have. And what they're really looking for at that interview is, well, is this somebody I can picture interacting positively with a client, with others in the workforce? Is this someone who, if ethical dilemma or issue came before them, that they would have the leadership and strong skills to be able to identify that and report it to the supervisor, or or am I concerned that a client's just going to kind of say, yes, hey, you don't need to look at those records, just take my word for it. Can they deal with all of that? So that's really the communication and interpersonal skills. And I encourage you, if you haven't already done so, look for job announcements that are posted at your career center, or you might find online, and maybe it's for an entry-level tax person, or it's for moving up to a manager, because the list of skills you're looking for, almost always you will see the very top one's going to be strong communication skills. It's not going to be expert knowledge of the tax law. They'll assume, based on your work experience and your education, that you have that and can continue to develop it. What's harder for a firm to be able to help you with is develop your interpersonal and communication skills. It's really very, very crucial. So in the last several years in our graduate tax program at San Jose State, is we've had kind of a change in the mix of students, where actually when I started teaching there 25 years ago, almost everybody in the program, the graduate program, already was working. And because I think 150 unit requirement, we're seeing more people come right from undergrad to the graduate, where they're going to be looking for a job when they graduate. So we've added some things to the program to help them further develop their interpersonal and communication skills. Everything from, for example, we have a student-run online tax journal, which is a great opportunity for students to write, plus exercise some leadership skills and being the editor or assistant editor of the journal. Going out and delivering financial literacy workshops, interacting with practitioners at tax conferences and things like that. So and seeing what more students need, we run a variety of workshops as well to help students even be aware of how to increase your emotional intelligence. At our required orientation in our MST program, I give all the students a copy of a book called Emotional Intelligence 2.0, which I'll mention here, so they can go and do an assessment and then we're working on these things. But let's get into, these are not any magic six, just six I came up with as things that might just be practical things. What could you do now to be helping to either get yourself into a tax career, or if you're already in one, to be advancing that career? So here's the 6 items, and let's get into each of these. Also, I know there's a fair amount on these slides. Deanna will get these slides out to you after the presentation. There's also a few links in there you might find of use. Well, gaining tax knowledge and skills. Now, hopefully as an accounting major, you probably at least one tax course. You may have actually had a second tax course as well. Everybody really has the opportunity to participate in VITA, even without any tax background. VITA is a program run by the IRS where volunteers are actually helping real taxpayers complete their federal and usually their state tax return as well. They have excellent training, and it's just an excellent opportunity. So if you're an undergrad student, see if you can find time, and usually this happens around November. They start recruiting people to get trained by the IRS, and then starting usually 3rd, 4th week in January through April 15th, you're working like maybe one afternoon, one morning, one Saturday a week, helping people. It's a great opportunity. Also, of course, to gain that tax knowledge and skills, as I mentioned earlier, someone who's saying, yes, I want to work full-time in a tax career, whether accountant or attorney, usually they're going to get a graduate degree in tax. So part of it might just be when you might be doing that or how you might be doing it. In fact, actually in our MST program, people might find that even the 10 tax courses they have to take to earn the degree, they want more than that. We actually have advanced certificate degrees where someone can go back and take 3 more classes and get, for example, an advanced degree in international tax. It's just a complicated area, but don't shy away from the complexity. It's what really makes a lot of that very exciting. And you'll find, for example, if you really want to pursue this career and go into getting a graduate degree, that you will find, yes, I really can learn all of this and continue to learn from all of that. And then something you can learn a lot just by reading tax news. You can find things on the internet, on blogs. If you're currently taking a tax class, ask your tax professor, well, what do you read to keep up to date? Something you can share with me. Where can I find some articles? In your campus library, you've probably got access to the Tax Advisor, the Journal of Taxation. You probably got a lot of that in your library as well. The second thing I'd recommend, and this is just not for a tax professional, anybody going into the accounting field. Certainly do what you can to read and write as much as you can. Don't shy away from it. If someone says, oh, don't take that class because there's a lot of writing, say, no, then I'm going to sign up for it because the more writing, the better. Even if you're already an excellent writer, you can always further enhance those skills. And I think this is really the differentiator. As people move, towards a manager level, what's really going to set them apart is really the interpersonal and the really good writing skills, plus that they don't shy away from it. Yes, I'm fine. You need me to go give a speech to the local Rotary Club? Sure, I can do that, not a problem. I have the confidence and skill and experience to do it. Or yes, I'll write a letter to the client explaining all this. I'll write this thing about the new law so they can all understand it. So a big part of being a good writer is to make sure you're reading often. Seeing good writing is going to be even more helpful to make you a better writer. Subscribe to a newspaper. I mean, in the accounting field, you need to be keeping up to date. Subscribe to your local paper or the Wall Street Journal or both. I think you'll find that spot in your campus library where they have all the daily newspapers, often from, many places throughout the U.S. Just make sure you're going to get in there a few times a week and read. Write a letter every week, maybe to a relative, to a classmate, to the editor of the newspaper, to your congressman, just, getting that comfort of just writing on a regular basis. Always be reading a book, whether it's fiction, nonfiction. This will just also gives you more things to talk about, right? It's going to help you with your interpersonal skills as well. Your campus, if you're currently a student, probably has a writing center. Most do. Find out what it takes to go in there. A lot of them will even look at your resume and your cover letter. Take advantage of that. They won't rewrite things for you, but they're going to give you some tips on how you can further improve. And if you feel that this is just a low skill for you, find a place, maybe a community college in the summer, where you can just pick up one more writing class. Because in your long career, this is going to be the differentiator, the people who can write with skill and confidence. Well, how about text less and talk face-to-face more? I know walking across campus, usually I see students on their phone, and usually it's, oh, hi, Mom. They're talking to their mother often or parent. And I'm thinking, well, gosh, there's people just right next to them they could be talking to, which would, challenge them a little bit, because maybe it's someone they don't know, but they are, someone at the same university, or we're busy texting when maybe we should be listening or writing. And we've got in our graduate tax program, we're very fortunate to have someone who's a retired VP of tax from Levi Strauss, and who's given a lot of focus in the last many years to how do people really have a successful tax career. Sometimes you'd find somebody who'd been in a career for 20 years saying, I really wanted to go this path. You thought, well, what a shame they've been 20 years on the wrong path. So he's been devoting his time in retirement. He teaches, for us, we're very fortunate, but very focused on, all the things you can just do to really improve these interpersonal skills. And a few things that he recommends is every day, find somebody you're going to talk to for just 5 or 10 minutes. Maybe it's someone you're at the bookstore on campus, talk to them. You're online waiting for a coffee. It's going to expand your networks. It's going to give you more of that confidence. Because, for example, if you are currently a student, you're thinking, well, gee, I'm going to have interviews at some point, and it'll maybe just happen. I'm going to read about it, how I can make sure I'm talking with confidence. Well, if you practice a lot more, you'd be more likely to be talking with confidence. We do everything much better once we've practiced, right? If you think about, for example, if you drive, well, think about when you first learned how to drive a car, how much you had to think about everything you had to do, and now it just becomes second nature, right? You're very confident driving a car because you've practiced so much. You've had so many experiences of good and bad, a close call, how you avoid a problem or whatever. The same with just talking. So the more you're going to talk to somebody, the better. When you go into your classroom, whoever you're sitting next to, shake their hand, introduce them, just like you would be doing at a meet and greet at a Beta Alpha Psi meeting or something like that. Practice these skills, okay? So text less, talk more face-to-face. The things you can be doing right now to help really just gain the confidence and that experience of doing it. And it might be tough at first, but just do it, right? Even if you know the person sitting next to you in the classroom, still shake their hand, introduce yourself, give them that 30-second elevator pitch. So the more you do it, it's become second nature, just like driving a car. Join a club. If you don't already BAPSI or accounting club or other clubs you might have on campus. Again, opportunity to interact with others. Plus an opportunity, clubs do have presidents, vice presidents, secretary, treasurer. Great opportunity to practice those leadership skills. Also, of course, always looks good on the resume as well. Then get to know some of your professors if you haven't already. You never know when you might need a referral. You can learn a lot from just talking to them. Also, as they get to know you better, they might be aware of additional opportunities that they can share with you. Okay, 4, assess and work to increase your emotional intelligence. And if you're not familiar with the term emotional intelligence, it's really kind of a new brain science, probably about 20 years old. It really dates back to a book by Daniel Goleman, Emotional Intelligence. There's a lot of books out there on this topic. I just mentioned this one here on the slide. I found it very useful with our students, and partly because when you buy the book new, there is a code in the back, and you can use that to go online and take an assessment. And then what's good is after the assessment, it'll come back and it'll say, well, here's some things you should work on. And it is focused on kind of 4 key areas of self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management. Very, very user-friendly. Basically what emotional intelligence is, and here's the definition from Peter Salovey and John Mayer. It says the ability to perceive, control, and evaluate emotions. The subset of social intelligence that involves the ability to monitor one's own and others' feelings and emotions. It's making sure that you are reacting properly. You're able to sense what others are doing. It's not flying off the handle because something isn't going right at the moment. It's really just always being. I really equate this to what we think of as being a professional, right? Just can handle themselves well, interact well with others, no matter what that emotional state, and just, if necessary, even calm a situation, make good use of what's going on in a particular situation. I'll give you a tip. When I first taken this test out of this book, one of the things that came back with for me was, well, whenever you're talking to somebody, always call them by their name. And I thought, well, gee, how'd they get that out of the assessment? I must say pretty good assessment, because I knew it was something I really needed to work on. And then I just really focused on, and it takes a while to develop a habit. It could take months, maybe even a year, but you just got to keep on focusing. Yes, I'm going to keep on doing this till it becomes just second nature. And I think that just that one example of calling somebody by their name when you address them, it's just a sign, I think, of professionalism. That the person's going to react better to you. You've made that connection. But find ways, and you might even see if there's workshops on your campus about emotional intelligence or how to improve. But there's as many things you can just keep on working. And again, these are things you could be doing now as a student, or if you already are in a tax career, it's something you could be doing to help advance your career. You can also learn a lot by, you probably can identify people that you see regularly who you think, wow, that person is just so professional. Everything they do, they put people at ease. They speak well. They're just confident in their ability. They're nice. Watch good role models. What can you learn from them? Also, this last item, ask others to help you improve. Well, if you've got friends or family that might help you, say, hey, I'm going to be working on trying to make sure when I talk to somebody, I say their name first, or whatever tips that might come from doing this assessment, because then they can help you do that, right? Don't think everything has to be done on your own. And also, you might find even on some jobs, they give you a coach or they give you a mentor, maybe helping them to help you to advance and gain these skills. 5. Another thing you can do right now, again, my 6 tips of things you can do now to help really advance that career or get ready for getting a career in tax. And of course, I think this would be useful even outside the tax field, getting a job in accounting. Join a club or organization, okay, because that's where it's a great opportunity to practice these skills, meeting people, listening to people. Plus, you're going to find that as an accountant, that's what accountants do. They join. You're going to be a member, for example, of AICPA. Obviously, Deanna mentioned many things I do in interacting with people at the AICPA. You're going to join your state CPA Society. You're going to join the local Rotary Club, where you can perhaps be interacting with possible clients or your existing clients. Accounting, they'll tend to do these things. Even people who work in a tax department in industry typically belong to a group called Tax Executive Institute, which is just members of tax professionals who work at corporate in companies. They interact regularly. That's how you learn, gee, is that how you're handling, you're using what kind of software, or what is a good software for dealing with this? So, gee, if somebody come across, the auditors in India seem to be mentioning this issue. Has others run across this? You just need these networks to help you. So getting that skill base down, you join a club on campus, or find out if you're already working, what groups do your members want. It's also, once you're professional, getting involved with a CPA group is a way you get your continuing education credits that you need as well. So think about doing it now. It's just a habit to get into, because your whole career you're going to find you're going to be involved in one or more organizations. And this last one, I think, oh no, manners, who cares? I already got good manners. We can always improve. Practice good business etiquette. Something we started doing with our graduate students is the option of, we actually have a dining etiquette. And I find that the students really do need that. I think it's too many times, for example, for dining, even at some decent restaurants you go out to, they just hand you, the silverware all wrapped up in a napkin. You don't actually see it laid out on the table, so we don't actually know how we do use. We sit down, you got 3 forks and 3 knives. What are you supposed to do with all that? What you're sitting down at, some professional meeting, and it's like, oh, I don't know which one of those napkins at the table is mine. I'm going to be embarrassed which one to take. No, you can learn all of that. You probably even have workshops on campus. You can get books on business and dining etiquette. There's even apps for this. Work on it. And I see, reminding my students that when they leave the classroom, I see that the chairs aren't pushed in. People have left their empty, soda glasses on a table. I'm thinking, why would they do that? And what does that reflect upon them if they were doing that in the workplace, if they were doing it in the course of an interview? So just more, again, just the awareness. And these are things that get noticed. When you had the interview lunch, that you said thank you when the food was delivered to you, that you pushed your chair in, that you were, practicing all those good skills, how to actually introduce yourself to somebody. There's lots you can learn. I encourage you do that. Those are very good distinguishing points. Also, something is the second bullet I really focus on with the students, because this is so noticeable when they do it well, is have a professional email address. You don't have it where it's cooldude.com. No, that doesn't get you anywhere. In fact, sometimes you send that off to, some CPA firm. That might just be the ticket to say, okay, that's somebody we don't have to interview. Professional email address. And in your email, find out how you do it, whether on Yahoo or Google. There's ways you do it where it's just an automatic signature line comes up. It's going to say, for example, Jane Doe, accounting major, San Jose State University, expected graduation date, a link to where your email is, and then if you have a LinkedIn page, have the link there right to it. Just getting these habits of doing this, because even as a student, you should do this. Don't have it where it's just signed Jane, because when that email shows up for you're sending off a resume or just asking a question of someone you met at the Bail Side meeting, like, Jane, who the heck is Jane? Right? You've just missed an opportunity where they can say, oh, Jane, I remember, she was an accounting major at San Jose State. So really just think about, how do you be professional? When you are interacting with professionals, ask them, how do you, how did you gain these skills? What helped you, do you think, really advance to being a partner at your firm? So just things to think about. But really think about these 6. It's not just the only 6. I want to come up with something kind of practical, a takeaway. Hope you will take a look at those. We'll open up the questions. I do have, on the next slide, I've got some resources. This is a sampling of resources. There's many out there. But find out, if you're on campus, find out what your campus offers. And the very last thing I've got in my handout, which Dan will be running out, is a 1-page time management tips, because you might be thinking, how can I do all of this? It's just too much. Well, for that, let's see if you got any questions, comments, observations.
Yes, we have a lot of questions, and so this is great. It's really exciting to see all the questions coming in. I'll first let everybody know that we will send out these slides either later today or by tomorrow. And also, we'll send out the recording of this webinar in about a week probably, so that you won't only have the slides, but you'll also have Annette's comments to go along with them. So hopefully that'll be very, very helpful. We have so many questions. I know we won't be able to get to the call now during our remaining time here, but for everybody on the line that posts questions, we will collect them, we'll collect the answers, and we'll get back with you, okay? So, in fact, more and more coming in now. It's great. So keep them coming in, because we will get some answers for you. So first off, we had a question about, is it better to have a Master's of Science in Taxation or a Master's of Science in Accounting with a concentration in taxation? What's your opinion on that?
Well, that's a good question. I think it depends on what you want to do. If you know I want to go into a career where I want to spend almost all my time dealing with tax, the MST would be the better way to go, because you're going to be focused just on taking courses in the tax area. And there are so many. For example, in our MST program at San Jose State, we have over 25 courses. We've got 4 required courses and a whole host of electives, but there's just so many topics to deal with that if you know you want tax, that's the area to go into. You're still going to get the opportunity to improve your writing skills and your how to keep up to date, how to do research. But I think you'll find if you know you want to go do tax work, spend all your graduate time on those concentrated tax courses. Okay.
Okay, good. And kind of a related question, when you're looking at the advanced education, someone asked, is it better to go ahead right into a master's program straight from an undergraduate degree, or would you recommend some years of experience before you pursue that?
That's also a very good question. Today I think it might also just depend on your particular timing. If you have the need to get 150 units, which I think in most states today that's probably what you need, then you finish your undergrad degree, let's say you have 120 units, you finish undergrad, and you find that the firms, they aren't hiring until you have 150 units. They think, well, I need 30 more units. Gee, I can just go to community college and pick up, QuickBooks and a few miscellaneous classes that'll get me where I need to go. I would instead say, get your master's degree. If you're going to get an extra 30 units, make it count. Do that. If you already have 150, for example, we do often see that many students started at community college and got way more units than they really needed. So they've got actually close to 150 or maybe more than 150. I'd encourage them, go out and work, and then maybe after a year or two, come back and get the graduate tax degree, because usually a lot of times the firm will pay for it, which is also nice. And then I think you might get, a little bit more out of it. Now, we've designed our tax program to have a good number of foundation-type courses, so we aren't having somebody with no experience in the workforce sitting in an advanced international course, for example. Instead, they'd be taking fundamentals of international tax, really giving them a very strong foundation for then starting their career. And then I think very likely that person who went right from undergrad into getting their MST might decide later, oh, I'm going to come back and I'm going to get one of those advanced certificates. I think you'll find there's a good number of programs that offer that as well. So I think it all depends on just what your immediate need is. Give you 30 units, don't waste it on something you don't need, get the graduate degree.
Okay, very good, very good. How many college credits are needed to take the EA certification?
I don't believe any college credits are needed to become an enrolled agent. The way you find the details on what it takes to be an enrolled agent, those are in an IRS reg called Circular 230. You can just even search on Google Circular 230 irs.gov and it'll come up. You also can just look at the IRS webpage, do a search for enrolled agent, but I don't believe you actually need to have a college degree, so it doesn't hurt to have a college degree. And then to become an enrolled agent, you actually are taking an exam just with tax questions that is offered by the IRS, and as an enrolled agent, you do have continuing education requirements to fulfill with the IRS.
Okay. Here's a question. It'll be interesting on your perspective as a professor. So if a student is in a class with, it's a very large class, so over 200 students, for example, how would you suggest that they approach the professor to get a recommendation?
Well, I find that's a pretty large class. You think, well, how could the professor even get to know all 200? Well, first, all 200 aren't even going to approach the professor. It's quite likely that maybe no one has even approached the professor. So most likely the professor does have office hours. Show up, go with a question, or let them know, gee, I'm really interested in tax. Do you have some advice? Is there like a meeting I can go to, like the local CPA Society? They're going to have a tax presentation or something that I can do, additional reading I can do, just ways to get in and meet the professor. But don't think that all 200 are showing up in their office, so you'll never get a chance to see them. Quite likely, when people see how large the class is, they think, oh, the professor's too busy, I won't go see them. But find some way to do that. And often I find asking a good question whether by email, and then go to the office or going right to their office hours. But take advantage of those office hours.
Great, good. You just mentioned about reading, and you talked a lot about reading continuously and how that will help your communication and interpersonal skills. So we had several questions around that idea. And one, you gave some recommendations, especially on your emotional intelligence. A few asked if there were additional books that you could recommend. And on a daily basis, if you have any suggested articles that would be good for them to really hone in on to read on a daily basis.
Yeah, good question. I would say one daily one as a accounting major or someone in the accounting profession should be the Wall Street Journal. And there's plenty to read in there, but it even comes out in the weekend. When I was in college, I don't think it came out in the weekend, but there's even weekend editions with many things to read. So that's one good starting point. And you probably find in your campus library, they've got several copies there. You can even go in and read those. You can also read it online. You can even have the headlines emailed to you. So that's a good way to go. And looking for tax materials, I'd even say going to the IRS website and just looking at some of their publications. They've got publications on business expenses, publications on accounting methods, publications on the Affordable Care Act, and maybe just pick up a few of those and read those. There's, not to say push any particular products, but one I found it's kind of useful and it's price effective just to read a little bit more is the Ernst & Young tax guide, where they've actually taken the IRS Pub 17 and they expand it and provide some planning, and so very, very accessible. You can find blogs of, and when you're looking at a blog, make sure it's somebody who actually is a tax professional. They're an attorney, a CPA, someone really knowledgeable about the tax law, because there's a lot of misinformation about the tax law out there as well. You might find some of those useful. A tax professor blog has some interesting posts. Go to the Joint Committee on Taxation website. They publish all kinds of very objective, user-friendly reports that go into a fair amount of detail on various aspects of the tax law. Watch for the House Ways and Means Senate Finance Committee. When they hold hearings, they're usually aired live as well as webcast. You can go back and look at many of those. So, and also say, ask your tax professor, what do you read to keep up to date? Can I borrow your, when you're done with your tax advisor, done with your old article, can you share it with me? Don't throw it out, give it to me.
That's a great suggestion. That's a great suggestion. All right, so conferences. Can unexperienced accounting college graduates attend tax conferences or any accounting conferences? Do you think they're open to? Go ahead. Yes,
and I encourage you, if you're a student, ask your tax faculty or any accounting professors for any assistance on that. I know, for example, the Cal CPA, which is the example I'm familiar with, the California CPA Society has local chapters throughout California, and they usually have a lunch update session. They love to see students there. And actually, our graduate tax program, we pay the registration fee for the students because I really want to encourage them to go out there so they can see what tax professionals do, they can interact. But often, like even a lunch fee for somebody's like $20, $25. But see, I've even talked to your department chair to say, if I could help organize where some students do want to go to see the local CPA chapter meetings and their education programs, if I can get students there, will you help, subsidize our fees? So check, check with the department chair, check with your accounting faculty, see what they can do to help you get there. Just go onto the websites, because typically they are open to non-members as well. And also, you can usually join your state society often for free.
There you go. I think we have time maybe for just one additional question.
Okay.
But
I'd be glad to take others and maybe answer and post them on your website if that helps.
That'll be great. So everybody, I will collect these questions. So I'll even leave the webinar open for a minute or two after we close, just so you can have an opportunity to send in any others. And be on the lookout for an email from me so that you can see the answers to the questions. So let's see here. What a person asked about tax software. How important is it to become very knowledgeable about tax software, and do you have an opinion on where they should maybe spend their time on concentrating between the different options?
Well, on tax software, you're going to find that firms use a variety of tools out there. In fact, you can even do a web search for, a comparison of tax software. Just get a sense of just how many different ones that are out there. Now, if you're doing your own Form 1040, yeah, find some software, play around with it, see what more could do. You can usually do not just your own tax return, but what if instead you had, 100,000 capital gain? Do a few scenarios. Perhaps your tax textbook might come with some tax prep software. Play around with it. I think you'll find that the basics of all software for tax prep is the same. We need to get the data input. Think about how was this software designed? Where is it going to grab a figure from one form and use it on a different form? Really try to figure out how did it get this data and then get it out on these forms in a correct manner. But you're going to find that they're all of different levels. There's tax prep software for sales tax that's been much different than what you see for the income tax. But certainly some exposure to something, including even just the one that comes with your tax textbook, is a good starting point to just kind of get a sense of what's involved in making this work and designing it.
Great. Okay. I can't thank you enough. This has been great. We do need to go ahead and close the session. So
thank you all very much.
I know that this is really valuable to everyone on the call. Like I said, I'll send out answers to questions, the recording, the slides, and be on the lookout for a survey as well. We're going to send out a kind of end of webinar survey just to get your thoughts on the value, the value of this webinar, and then also content that you would like to know or topics you would like to know about in addition, so that we can really be responding to what you want to learn. So thank you all. I appreciate it. Hope you join us for some other sessions this week. Annette, thank you so much. This was great.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.